Okay, so I promised a video on Buddhism and no self, and here it is. This is basically a little mini lecture. It can be somewhat difficult to understand. No self sounds odd. There isn't a me. What does that mean? Well, here's what it means, at least at a very minimal and very basic level. So you are used to the idea that there is such a thing as you. You are a person, and the person that you are is the same over time. So you're born, and you grow up, and you live, and you age, and it's always you. And what you typically get, you get this both among certain Western philosophers in the West, and you get this in Hinduism as well. And Hinduism, of course, is what Buddhism is responding to you. Think of yourself as your mind, as your self awareness, as your self consciousness. You remember your past, you have beliefs, desires, plans, intentions. That's you. I am this self aware, continuous being. Now, we might think of that in a way, as you saw on the slide before, as I'm a permanent substance. I'm a permanent thing. There's a me. And I have different thoughts, different feelings, different memories and beliefs and values at different times in my life. But despite all these changing things, there's a permanent me. There's a permanent me, a me that's always the same and never changes. So I have this and that memory, this and that feeling, this and that thought, this and that desire. But I am the permanent, unchanging entity that has those thoughts. Buddhism says, nope, there is no such thing as a permanent you. All that you are is a changing collection of various thoughts, memories, feelings, desires, and so forth. Right? There isn't a you that has all these things. You just are the collection of these things. And so your identity doesn't consist in permanence, but in constant change. You are a collection of parts. You're a collection of mental parts. You're a collection of physical parts. You're a collection of mental parts in one body and one brain. This is how Buddhism sees it. So there isn't a permanent, unchanging entity that is reincarnated from life to life, like in Hinduism, or a permanent soul that will go to heaven when you die, like in Christianity, Judaism, perhaps Islam as well. What there is a constantly changing collection of mental states, kind of loosely held together by their relationships. That's you. There isn't a permanent you. And you got to think about it this way. It's kind of like anything else in the universe. Take my watch, for example. Now, we say my watch has a face, hands, hours and minute signs, a band. That doesn't mean there's a thing called the watch that has these things. The watch just is all these things put together in a particular way. You are no different. There isn't a you who has thoughts, memories, feelings. There's just a collection of those things put together in a particular way. It's true of any other object, a car. A car isn't an entity in its own right that then has tires and metal and an engine. It just is all those things put together. Same thing as you. That's all Buddhism is saying. Now, you might wonder, of course, if there's not a permanent me, what gets reincarnated? Because both Buddhists and Hindus believe in reincarnation. Well, what gets reincarnated is sort of that continuity. It's no different than what happens in your life. So I turn 42 next week. It's my birthday next Thursday. And is the 42-year-old Matt the same as 20-year-old Matt or 9-year-old Matt? Yes and no. But there's a continuity. That 9-year-old turned into that 20-year-old who slowly turned into that 42-year-old. And so there's a continuous kind of process. But there's not a permanent me. I'm very different now. My mental life is very different. And I'm not entirely identical with that past guy, but I'm continuous with him. So I am a continuation of the previous Matt. In the next life, according to Buddhism, someone will be a continuation of me in just the same way. The break's a little bigger, but the continuity is the same. Okay? So again, to sum it up, there is no such thing as an unchanged part of you. You are a collection of always changing parts like everything else in the universe. Remember, the main Buddhist idea is impermanence. Now, what do you see as the value of this? Why is this important for Buddhism? Here's why. Buddhists think that most of our suffering is psychological, maybe even all of it's psychological. And remember, the problem in Buddhism is suffering and how to avoid it. So how do we avoid suffering in Buddhism? We avoid it this way. We avoid it by letting go of craving, letting go of a desire for permanence. And we let go of permanence, let go of the greed, hate and anger, delusion and ignorance that are caused by that permanence. Okay? So when we do that, what we find, very simply, is that we have peace. We are able to let go of the idea that there's a permanent me, or that anything is permanent. When I've truly grasped impermanence, I'm radically free. I'm radically free from clinginess. I'm radically free from focusing so narrowly on myself and its needs. I'm open. I've transcended myself by forgetting myself, by realizing that I'm not a permanent entity, but I'm a collection of parts that's kind of intertwined with everything else. And that's the basic idea. I will put a video on there too by a fellow named Julian Begani. It's in your video section. That'll explain this a little more, but I thought I'd try to break it down. Take a look at those slides again as well. Here, let's pull them up real quick just to show you. All right, let's pull up the Buddhism slide. And if I can switch this here, I'm not sure that I can. And it doesn't look like it'll let me do that. I thought I could switch in the middle, but it looks like I can't. So here's what we'll do. Take a look at the slides on no self. There's one with a picture of a smiling face, and then, well, actually, yes, there's one with Socrates. Take a look at those slides. Take a look at the Begani lecture, and I think you'll understand this pretty well. Okay? Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.